Hello everyone, welcome. My name is Mav and today we're going to have a conversation about healing trauma through play and healing trauma through rest. Now, we experience trauma in a ton of different ways. If you, I guess a good way for me to kind of explain this is that we have big T traumas, like really intense experiences, car accidents, loss of a loved one, things like that, that can cause quite a lot of trauma in that experience. And then we also have little T trauma, so these are like smaller experiences that we have throughout our life that cause us to have intense emotions. So that can be things like anything that causes chronic stress, which can be so many different things. Things like bullying, for me, like religious trauma, things like that. Those can be long-term, maybe different forms of trauma that you experience. So it's important for us to consider that whenever folks talk about trauma, they're not just talking about folks that have been through maybe a really big traumatic experience. So it's actually kind of impossible for us to go through life without going through traumatic experiences, especially because when we're children, we have a very difficult time conceptualizing what's going on for us. So if we feel unsafe, we might kind of really feel like the end of the world is coming, because we might not understand what's going on, and we'll typically take the worst perspective when we're really little, just because we don't understand. That's why it's really helpful when we have emotionally aware adults to help walk us through these things. But the problem is that the majority of us, I have met I don't think I can really even name a person right now who has had an adult in their life. I could probably know some children who have parents that are really supportive like that, but none of my peers have had parents that actually know how to like walk them through really, really difficult emotions. So that means the majority of us are dealing with some form of trauma, even if we don't really recognize the fact that that's happening. So over time, trauma in our childhood, and also trauma that might happen as we get older, right? We continually go through traumatic experiences all the time. What happens is that will activate our nervous system, our parasympathetic nervous system. Actually, no, it's our sympathetic nervous system. It'll activate that system that tells the body to start releasing stress hormones and let us know that, all right, like we're under stress. This is time for us to move forward, to kind of like attack the tiger, for example. It's a primitive protective system that we all have, but it's being activated in things that don't necessarily need for us to get all activated like that. For example, if we have bills due, we don't need to run away from them, but our body will still react like that's what we need to do. So, all right, so over time, this puts a lot of stress on our nervous system, and that's gonna start causing quite a few problems. Any type of long-term chronic stress has really awful implications for us in our lives. So I talked about how, our nervous system starts to get activated. We really can conceptualize that as the flight or flight, freeze, fawn responses. I'm not going to get too into that. Probably I'll do that in a whole other video. I'll talk just about the different forms of the traumatic responses. But that's that state that most of the time we're in that state. Now we want to switch over to the rest, repair, rest, digest state. That's where our parasympathetic nervous system starts acting up, and that calms us down, starts sending different chemicals for us to start regulating and relaxing. And that's the time where, because everything has kind of calmed down, our body can start sending energy, different nutrients, releasing other hormones that help the body relax and repair our muscles. That's why sleep is really important if you're training or working out, because that's when your body starts to repair itself. Rest is important. So we need to do the best that we can to get into this state and kind of access these tools that are readily available to us to start healing. I think every single one of these tools that I'm going to talk about are completely free of charge. Like there's nothing, you don't have to go sign up for anything to do these. You can do these literally right now. Okay, so one of the first things that we need to understand when we're trying to work on using play and rest as a form of healing is that we really just need to go easy on ourselves. We need to be understanding that, yeah, we might be in really difficult situations right now, and then we do have to like be present with our physical experience. That's important. And then at the same time, we can understand that we are going through ups and downs of life, and we just need to be present with ourselves as we're kind of in a lower state. We will eventually kind of move out of that, but we need to have a little bit of lightness, I think, and just be kind to ourselves as we're going through this phase. The word compassion comes to mind with this. It's just so important to be compassionate with ourselves and to send ourselves a little bit of understanding. And then I think another part of compassion is it also leads to action, right? We don't just sympathize with ourselves and do nothing. We understand that we're in pain, and we do what we can to help support ourselves through that. The human body is incredible at self-healing. It just needs to have the right environment to do so. So these are some ways that we can start to create that ideal healing environment within you as a person. All right, so first, we're going to talk about why play is so important. Personally, for me, I think play helps us get in touch with our inner child. Like I said, when we're really little, we go through a lot of intense emotional experiences then. So it's just, I think for me, it's been very, very meaningful to, do things that send, healing to that inner child part of myself. So as much as you can, even like imagining bringing like your little child self along with you as you're doing fun things like this can start to really send messages to your subconscious that you're ready to start healing some of the stuff that might have gone on in your childhood. These are just examples. You don't have to do this in exactly the way that I'm saying, but it's been useful for me, so that's why I'm talking about it, really. Okay, so one of the first things that we can do in the terms of play, I think, is being creative. So any way that we can create anything is a great way to engage in this healing practice. So whether that's, you can create through the visual arts, you can create through music, poetry, and I think also some people are really creative in other ways, maybe like digital, like graphic designing video games. Maybe you really like to play video games. I'll talk about games later, actually. But those are just different examples of ways that you can start adding some play into your life through creation and using that creative energy. Super, super healing. Another thing is to explore. I think we have this innate sense of curiosity within us as humans, and as much as we can, letting ourselves explore can be really enjoyable. So this can be like intellectual exploration, so maybe researching a topic that might be really it helps our energy move through our bodies, so that's just a really positive and helpful thing to do. Another thing is to use games. So just like playing games can also be really fun. I think that feeds a lot of our inner child interests, whether that's like board games. I know Dungeons and Dragons is really big. I have never played it before, but I know that can be really important for some people. And it also creates a sense of community, which is awesome. So if you can play games with other people, that's really great as well. Video games, I find just like relaxing with video games to be really pleasant for me. So whatever is beneficial for you, just invite that into your healing practice. Anything can be healing, by the way. So that's why we're just having fun. The other thing, my last point in terms of play, is to just like laugh. Laughter is really, really helpful. It also just kind of plays on the fact that like the universe is just kind of like a game a little bit. So just adding some lightness to life in general. So whenever you can laugh, that's really helpful. Even kind of laughing at ourselves when we're in difficult times can sometimes be useful. What it makes me think of is when like we look at a little baby and we watch them walking, and a lot of times we're just like laughing and smiling because it's exciting. but it's also kind of silly the way that they're wobbling around and stuff like that. But that's how it looks like when we're going through a difficult situation. We're kind of like floundering around, and I think for the baby it might be kind of frustrating to feel that awkward and uncomfortable, but when everyone around is excited and like is like happy and walks them through it, it makes it a little bit easier. So adding laughter as much as we can I think just help with healing in general, and kind of like push away a lot of negativity that we might experience, even though negativity is an important part of the cycle of life. All right, so the next aspect is rest. I think that some people, especially in our culture, have a really difficult time with rest. It's expensive, I think. Some people think that we can't afford to rest. There's too much to do. We have to get this or that done. And I would argue the opposite, that you can't afford not to rest. You have to rest. Your body is this really awesome vessel, but it just needs to be taken care of, right? It's like a car. You can't just drive your car continuously without stopping for gas. You need to get your oil checked. Like there's certain routine things that you need to do to make sure a car is running, and our bodies are very similar. Play is a really awesome way that we can start to tap into just relaxation and getting into that zone, but rest specifically is so important, and it's vital. Like I said, we can't afford not to rest. I just thought of there's this Instagram account called the Nap Ministry. The Nap Ministry, and I just enjoy their content because it just is. It reminds me that it's okay to just relax, and that like rest is sacred. So surround yourself with media also that talks about how important rest is, especially if this is something that you struggle with. All right, so the first one is pretty simple. That could just be making sure that your sleep is as healthy as it can be. So if that means like cleaning up your sleep hygiene so that you can get a little into a better rhythm with your rest, then that might be what you need to do. If you struggle with sleep, and you need to take naps, I think just let yourself sleep as much as you need to during the day, especially if you have time. Maybe even using your lunch break at work to go to your car and take a nap. It might be really healing for some people. And then also working on not feeling guilty for resting. That can be a process, but I think that takes a little bit of practice. Another thing is if you can't get or have the time to get a full nap in, I have tried this in the past, and it's been pretty helpful. I don't do it all the time right now, but just like laying down with like your legs up on a wall can be really helpful for you. It can kind of get your body to circulate. It's kind of like a half inversion, and inversions can be very useful. So trying to even do that for 5 minutes, or just closing your eyes, can give your body a little bit of time to start to regulate. Another thing is using breathing techniques to help you relax or get you into a restful state. Deep breathing into your belly can be really awesome for this. Making sure, I have found that extending your exhalation can be very restful. So inhale, but then make sure your exhalation is longer than your inhalation, if that makes sense. So try those, and I would also say, if you're gonna start working on breathing techniques, try to be as consistent as possible to see a benefit. A lot of people will just practice a breathing technique when they're in the midst of a very difficult situation, and then say that breathing techniques don't work for them. I've seen it so many times, but that's just not the truth. You have to practice when you're a little bit more regulated, and get the habit of it, so that it becomes beneficial. You're training your body to breathe in a different way. The way my lung capacity has improved, but that has taken a little bit of time for me to kind of breathe up or build up my breathing capacity. So I would recommend practicing that as often as possible and as soon as possible. The other thing is, this also is kind of like movement, but much slower movement. I'm talking like yin yoga type stuff. Maybe just doing some very gentle stretching. You can even Google things like yoga for relaxation or yoga for rest, things like that. That can help you just get into different body positions that encourage restfulness. And anything that's kind of like slow, relaxing movements, even if it's just like rocking, that can be very settling for the body. Yeah, all right, that's a good one. And the last one is meditation. Meditation is very, very useful for inducing a restful state in the body. If you do it for a long enough period of time, you can really just get into a state where your body is very, very relaxed. And your mind is still like awake and doing things. It's very active, but your body feels very, very relaxed, and you're just giving it a chance to rest. But that, yeah, just practicing getting into that deeper relaxation state is very, very useful. And like I said before, all of this stuff is free. You can just Google something to look at how to meditate, or how to meditate to relax my body. Just start to utilize these tools that you have readily available for you right now. Just start to invite and create an environment of rest around you as much as possible. Some of these things might feel a little bit tricky, and that's okay. So if you are starting to work on this journey, I would invite you to join my Facebook group, where we're doing a lot of this work together. This coming week, we're going to be talking more about mindfulness practices and relaxation practices, which are just some of my favorite things. So I'm very, very excited for that. So yeah, I would love to have you join us in the work that we're doing there. Thank you so much for checking in. I will see you next time. Peace and love. See you tomorrow.